second annual EGFR Resisters Research Summit took place between November 12 and 14, 2020. Young investigators arrived from many parts of the United States and from Canada. It was quite a diverse group. They really, it was really easy to communicate with each other. They formed a great community.
We'd like to share a little bit with you about what happened at the summit, which unfortunately wasn't open to all the patients in the community because the young investigators are working on ongoing research that hasn't been published yet and cannot be completely shared. We had a great group of mentor judges, very well-known oncologists in the EGFR lung cancer space who mentored our participating young investigators on a variety of topics, as you can see on this slide. And they were also divided up into specific squads by oncologists, as you can see the different teams. So each young faculty member or young investigator who participated in the summit got to spend some 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 time with a specific oncologist and really, really learn from them and collaborate on their project. We had a group of our presenters who gave summaries of their research in a breakout session format. And the rest of our presenters were part of a general session where everyone who participated in the meeting, mentored judges, advocates, and all the other young faculty as well, were all part of. In the main session, I'm going to introduce Dr. Josh Bauml right now, who's going to do a summary of the projects that were featured.
Thanks so much. This was a really exciting session. And we were able to see this was some of the top EGFR related research that was submitted to the summit in this general session. I took the abstracts that were in that session, divided them into 3 sort of themes. And obviously, as was said before, we can't talk about the details of the research, but just in principle, one of the main ideas that came up was about immunotherapy. So immunotherapy, for those who don't know, is treatments that amplify the immune system to try to make the immune system attack the cancer. What we know about immunotherapy is that historically, it has not been very effective for patients with EGFR mutant non-small cell lung cancer. So there are multiple researchers trying to improve that outcome. So we saw data from Dr. Wang, from Dr. Maroney, and Dr. Lau, all of whom were describing different ways that you can use the immune system to attack the cancer. So Dr. Wang is involved in a study looking at cellular therapies, which takes actual white blood cells out of a person, reprograms them, and sends them back in. Dr. Lau was talking about how maybe different types of EGFR mutations would have different responses to immunotherapy, so that exon 20 might respond differently than an exon 19 deletion, the more common mutations. And Dr. Maroney presented sort of a holistic approach about how you can incorporate immunotherapy into EGFR mutant disease in a multimodal fashion, really looking at different treatment approaches. This is really exciting because historically immunotherapy hasn't worked, but that's not where we should stop. We shouldn't just say, oh, it doesn't work here. What we as scientists like to do is we say, well, why? Why isn't it working? And there's a lot of work being done in that space. Another place where we saw a lot of data was about resistance. We know that when a patient with EGFR mutant disease can get a drug like osimertinib or one of these tyrosine kinase inhibitors, these pills, the responses are remarkable. but resistance is nearly inevitable. It will eventually stop working. And so we saw a lot of really interesting data. Two of the doctors, Dr. Valillo and Dr. Roto, were talking about specific ways to deal with resistance. So Dr. Valillo was talking about, well, if the cancer progresses only in the brain, what if you gave a higher dose of the osimertinib? Would that help it get into the brain better? Dr. Roto was talking about a specific type of resistance mutation, which is RET, a different gene. Sometimes that can get activated, and there are drugs that can target that. So she presented data on a trial looking at that target. And then we saw some more basic science. The word basic science really just means in the lab, right? Not really working with people. But Dr. Chan and Dr. Zhang, both of whom were talking about how these lung cancer cells work when we give treatments, looking at what is happening at a cellular level when small cell transformation happens. That's when non-small cell, which is what EGFR mutant lung cancer usually is, can become the more aggressive small cell. What is the driver that's making that? And Dr. Zhang was looking at it from a slightly different perspective, saying, okay, we've given osimertinib, we see a beautiful response, but we know that it doesn't cure it. So what is going on with those cells that stay around, that persist? And that's really what his research was looking at, and some very exciting data there. And then we saw some other projects. So this is sort of the other theme. I tried to group these up together. But Dr. Petrillo spoke about some very important work looking at quality of life. So when patients have incurable cancer, our goal is to prolong life and improve quality of life, but we don't have a lot of data about how well we're doing that. And Dr. Petrillo is doing some really important work looking at what the patients are saying about their quality of life and their communication with their treatment team as they're going through their therapy. Dr. Utagawa was talking about some emerging data about exon 20. This is a rare EGFR alteration, talking about how different drugs might work and how new drugs might improve outcomes. And then Dr. D. Miguel was talking about, just in principle, this other pathway called SMARCA4, and how that can affect the effectiveness of things like osimertinib or other tyrosine kinase inhibitors, with the goal of making tyrosine kinase inhibitors, or targeted therapies that we take for EGFR mutant lung cancer, work better for more people. And I just thought, in principle, this whole session was so inspiring to see all these young investigators that are doing this work. And I know, Jill, you wanted to comment a little more about sort of how this all circled back in the end.
Yes, I first want to mention that our winner was our grand prize winner, who this person received $10,000 towards their work, was Joseph Chan, who is uncovering molecular drivers of neuroendocrine plasticity in patients with small cell transformation. And we could give more information about the other winners. We will post that. But our goal when creating this summit was to bring these young investigators together to foster collaborations early in their career to further the field of EGFR positive lung cancer. Their hard work and enthusiasm was so contagious, but we are also so grateful for our faculty who we were so lucky to have, that they supported, mentored these young investigators, and they shared pearls of wisdom to help develop their careers in lung cancer. And we also really want to thank AstraZeneca for funding this conference, and CEC Oncology for organizing this unbelievable career development conference for the next generation of lung cancer researchers and oncologists. And one of the things that we said to the researchers was that the true value of research for us, for patients and our families, is hope. Well, I can tell you that the essence of this conference was hope, and the future of lung cancer is bright.